nationalism is illegitimate without history. Nationalist narratives can exist successfully if specific episodes of the past are aired in the present. Of course, nationalists conveniently omit episodes that do not align with their story and instead usurp a past of glory in which the nation was a fact. What we often see with nationalist resculpting of history is a certain infatuation with national heroes, making them heavily curated vehicles for different variants of identity. It is not just an age or a period of history nationalists draw legitimacy from, but rather chosen heroes to project a distinct, often ethnonational, spirit in primordial light. We only ought to look at Putin's frequent reach to Russia's imperial past through Peter or Catherine the Great to historically and morally justify the invasion of Ukraine and subsequently the sacredness and absolutism of Russian identity. The frequent and frankly fanboyish mythologizing of national heroes tells us a few things about the act of legitimizing nationalisms. Firstly, nationalists sift through history for the most fitting idol and reconcile it with the present in an effort to manufacture evidence for the historical existence of the nation. The most fitting idol being a notable great, which makes violence in the name of the nation valid, and by the same token validates the existence of the nation on the basis of violence. Secondly, the great, by being of certain ethnicity, sanctifies that ethnicity as absolute truth, and subsequently validates the existence of an ethnonational identity in the past. Thirdly, this is indicative of an effort to own history and its actors based on ethnonational claims. The logic here is that a certain great can only be of one ethnicity and therefore belong to one ethnic nation-state in its historical mythology, which we see in Bulgarian-North Macedonian relations. In brief, the Macedonian question, familiar to European politics since the 19th century, encapsulates Bulgarian, Greek, and Serbian interests in the Macedonian region, on the condition that Macedonia is ethnically, linguistically, historically, religiously, and culturally congruent to all three respective nation-states. It is not surprising, therefore, that Bulgarian-North Macedonian relations have been oscillating between friendship and acrimony for over a century, given the unresolved political turned historical dispute that has become a prerequisite for North Macedonian membership in the European Union. The dispute is not about state. Bulgaria recognizes a North Macedonian state and was, in fact, the first country to do so. This is a dispute about the existence of a North Macedonian ethnic nation, about its historical legitimacy, about identity. Whilst North Macedonia claims that there is a distinct North Macedonian nation, language, and history, Bulgaria considers it an artificially engineered identity whose language did not exist until the 2nd of September 1944, when the North Macedonian language was codified. For Bulgaria, North Macedonia is an extension of the Bulgarian nation, language, and history, and as such, there is no distinct ethnic identity as a North Macedonian. There are Bulgarians that speak a dialect of the Bulgarian language and whose history is Bulgarian. The question of whether there is an ethnically distinct North Macedonian identity is consequently easily answerable by either camp, but of course, those answers are antithetical. Crucially, this loaded question of identity has become an auditorium for petty historiographies and politics that fuel nationalist sentiments and raise questions about the ethics of nationalism and its engagement with history. This Bulgarian-North Macedonian saga resembles a sibling brawl. Much like siblings stealing each other's clothes, or in this case, one stealing the historical heroes of the other. Who is who in this brawl differs depending on who is telling the story. More poignantly, however, It's a saga that displaces the role of national heroes from fixed, mythical agents to active sources of credibility where ethno-national identity is concerned. In claiming these heroes as theirs, North Macedonian nationalists attempt to legitimize their ethnic nation as a historical fact, making it independent from Bulgarian identity. The latter consider, on the other hand, the very act of claiming Bulgarian historical heroes as North Macedonian to be a testimony to their Bulgarianness, and likewise an attempt to make the nation appear as having existed for longer than it actually has. There are a number of heroes the Bulgarian-North Macedonian tug-of-war has taken hostage, but three greats remain central: Tsar Samuil and Cyril and Methodius, apostles of the Slavs. Outside of nationalist stories, the former is a medieval mercenary and the latter a pair loyal to Byzantium before the Slavs. All are ethnically ambiguous, extremely useful emblems for insufficient identities and inconveniently difficult to claim by any Slavic nation. Perhaps it is because of this that they are recruited in the legitimization of both Bulgarian and North Macedonian ethno-nationalisms. This is also perhaps why they are a comfortable crop of heroes to own. Tsar Samuil's role in the saga is twofold. He acts, of course, as a legitimizing factor for a distinct and separate ethnic North Macedonian nation, as the first Tsar of the Macedonian Slavs. This nationalist verdict is based on geography. The center of Samuil's empire was Ohrid, then Bulgaria's cultural center, today North Macedonia's. For North Macedonian nationalists, consequently, if Samuil's empire operated from a territory known officially today as North Macedonia, he is North Macedonian. Samuil then is seen to justify not only the existence of a North Macedonian ethnic identity, particularly based on geography, but also its longevity. In a similar vein, the geographical boundaries of the Bulgarian Empire under Samuil is proof, for Bulgarians, that North Macedonians are in fact Bulgarians. The existence of a Bulgarian Empire under Samuil is one of those great episodes that the nationalist mechanism extracts. Here, the Bulgarianness of Samuil comes not from his birthplace, but from the fact that he was the head of the empire. There is actually very little effort here to justify Samuil's ethnicity in more solid terms, and so the primary reason for his Bulgarian identity becomes the Bulgarian crown he wore. The saints Cyril and Methodius, known in Slavic history as having devised the Glagolitic and Cyrillic alphabets, are claimed by the entire Slavic populace. The saintly pair is paradoxically both a point of commonality between Slavonic nations and a point of distinction between forms of Slavic nationalisms. The mythicism and canonization of Cyril and Methodius distracts extremely well. Questions about origins and ethnicity lack answers, and if they do not, it would be guesswork. Perhaps, however, it is again precisely because there is a lack of clarity that the myth of the brothers becomes so easily malleable. For North Macedonians, the saints codified not just the language of the Slavs, but the language of Macedonian Slavs in particular. The story is once again based on geography here. The region from which the two brothers are was apparently populated by Macedonian Slavs, and as such, they were Macedonians themselves, hence the codification of the Macedonian language. For nationalists, casting Cyril and Methodius in ethnic terms enshrines the North Macedonian identity as a distinct fact. For Bulgarian nationalist stories, the First Bulgarian Empire is the enabler of the saints' civilizing mission, and therefore the nation through which Slavic languages were codified, since the empire provided refuge for Cyril and Methodius after banishment from Moravia. For Bulgarian nationalists, therefore, the Bulgarian nation emerges from an imperial and civilizing mission, which assumes as its own. Being the bearer of Slavonic linguistics is a symbolic role that Bulgaria has often linked to its ethno-national identity in the Slavic world and to its longevity, as having existed as a civilizing ethnic nation in the past. Mythologizing national heroes is necessary for the legitimization of nationalisms. In the Bulgarian-North Macedonian saga, nationalist narratives do so by scrambling for ethnically ambiguous greats, in a bid to make their identity variants complete whilst making the other insufficient. What emerges from this dispute is an argument about which ethnonational identity predated which. It becomes a question of who came first, the chicken or the egg. A second conclusion also emerges, one that is concerned with privatizing history. By making it the exclusive belonging of a single nation-state, it attempts to prevent the use of this very history to support ethnonational claims outside the nation it belongs to. In an effort to settle a dispute along ethnonational lines, history and its heroes are weaponized to the point where an overlap between national history is considered robbery.